right. I think I got the volume good on this. Yeah. Okay. We are live from Occupy City Hall in Rockford, Illinois. It's been a while since I did one of these. I wish this one was under different circumstances. If anybody's listening to this, if the audio is not working, please say something. If the audio is working, just let me know that the audio is working fine. I'm going to go through the introduction. My name is Leslie Roth. I'm a member of the May 30th Alliance. The May 30th Alliance is a direct action organization located in Rockford, Illinois, dedicated to the struggle to end police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice in Winnebago County. The May 30th Alliance began the occupation of the City Hall in Rockford, Illinois on October 2nd, 2020. On October 3rd, 2020. After on October 2nd, 2020, Tyrus Jones, an unarmed black man, was shot while running away by the Rockford Police Department by Officer Dominic McNeese. We would continue the occupation of the City Hall in Rockford, Illinois through the end of November, when Officer Dominic McNeese was found to be justified in the attempted murder of Tyrus Jones. Dominic McNeese would return back to work, and we would continue occupying the City Hall in Rockford, Illinois. On January 5th, 2021, Denzel Duvant would be brutally beat while he was handcuffed by multiple officers in the Rockford Police Department. Denzel Duvant would also be an unarmed black man. One of the officers involved in the assault of Denzel Duvant would be Officer Dominic McNeese, who months earlier had shot Tyrus Jones while he was running away. There'd be no investigation into the assault of Denzel Duvant, and all the officers involved will continue patrolling the community of Rockford, Illinois. We will continue our occupation through April 10th, 2021, when Faustin Guaitigo will be murdered inside of his home by Winnebago County Sheriff Deputy Joseph Brulard. Faustin Guaitigo is an African immigrant. Excuse me for not knowing the exact country that he was born in, native to. We will continue the occupation of City Hall through April 11th, 2021, when no more than 24 hours later, Jose Gonzalez Jr., a 19-year-old Mexican, would be shot while he was running away by Rockford Police Department Officer Owen McGinnis. And then we will continue the occupation of City Hall in Rockford, Illinois through April 25th, 2021, when Raymond Jackson would die after a high-speed pursuit took place on the streets of Rockford, Illinois. For people who may not be aware, high-speed pursuits are considered a use of deadly force. There have been multiple people who have died in Rockford, Illinois, and in Winnebago County as results of accidents from these high-speed pursuits. So high-speed pursuit would take place on April 25th, 2021, and the man who would crash his car into Raymond Jackson, killing Raymond Jackson and critically injuring two children in the car with Raymond Jackson, would be fleeing from the police, and their car would go over the speed things that they put out to poke people's tires out. The back tires would hit it, and then their car would crash into the car Raymond Jackson was driving, killing Raymond Jackson. We would continue the occupation through August of 2021, when the murder of Faustin Guaitigo would be ruled to be justified, and Officer Joseph Brulard would return to work and patrolling the streets in Winnebago County. We would continue the occupation through September 2021, when Officer Owen McGinnis, who shot Jose Gonzalez Jr., would be ruled to be justified in his shooting of Jose Gonzalez Jr. and go back to patrol the streets. Make sure I get the date right. And even though this is not in Winnebago County, it's on October 25th, 2021, there would be an officer-involved shooting in Dekalb. I'm not sure how many people have seen the story of the officer-involved shooting in Dekalb, but the Dekalb Police Department would murder a man inside of his home. The name of the officer who did the shooting in Dekalb hasn't been released, but the name of the young man who was murdered has been released. His name is Chris Kramer. There's a GoFundMe that we have pinned to the top of the May 30th Alliance Facebook page. I would ask anybody that's watching this to please share that GoFundMe and donate if possible, and also share this live as well. There has not been a lot of coverage or a lot of news stories or anything about this killing of Chris Kramer. Has been framed as him having a sword and the officers shooting him. I want to go through and read the story that was released if I can locate it. Give me a second. I'll read the story, and then after reading the story, I'll just sort of try to speak on the relevance that it has to us here in Rockford. All right. One man is dead, and a Dekalb police officer was placed on administrative leave after a deadly officer-involved shooting. For those who don't know, administrative leave means he's on paid leave. His health insurance is covered, medical insurance is covered. Anybody that's under his insurance is still covered. He's still getting paid his salary, so he's on a paid vacation. The Dekalb Police Department says they received a call around 2:45 a.m. Monday for domestic disturbance in the 100 block of Tilton Park Drive. Officers arrived on scene and say they found a frantic woman in the backyard who said a man inside had been drinking and was armed with a, quote, samurai sword, end quote. The woman told police the man threatened to kill her and attack the officers. She also said the man was a danger to himself and had self-inflicted wounds to his wrist. Dekalb police say officers attempted to make contact with the man by speaking through the front door. After multiple attempts, officers were able to start a dialogue with the man, police say. As officers attempted to de-escalate the situation, they convinced the man to let them inside to speak with him. Police say that's when the man grabbed a samurai sword and advanced towards officers with the weapon over his head and pointed at officers. Police say officers ordered the man to drop the weapon several times, but he refused to comply. Authorities say officers deployed less than lethal measures, including a taser and beanbag rounds. However, police say one officer fired one shot from his department-issued gun and hit the man in his chest. Police say officers immediately started to provide first aid to the man. He was then taken to the hospital where he later died from his injuries, police say. The man's name has not been released at this time. That was the story that was released on the 25th, or the 25th, from 13 WREX. I'm not sure how much of that is factual, because a lot of this is coming from all of this is from the police's side of things. So I don't know how much of this is factual, but I think that's completely secondary to the fact that once again somebody called the police, called 911, looking for help for somebody, looking for even in the story they say that the young woman, the woman in the story said that she told the police officers that he was a danger to himself. She felt he was a danger to himself. He had hurt himself, and so this was somebody who needed help. This was somebody who was inside of their own home. This was somebody who did not have any hostages. The police officers entered into his home, and again, this is a young man. This is a young man who was white, a white young man. We've at this point been out here, and again, this isn't in Rockford, it's not in Winnebago County, but it's in DeKalb. Anybody who lives in Rockford and has grown up in Rockford has been to DeKalb, or knows people who have been to DeKalb and have went to NIU, or have went to NIU for parties, or know people who have lived in DeKalb. And so this isn't something happening on the other side of the world. And even if it was, it's just a point to be made that no matter where these things happen at, that it should cause some type of reaction from each of us, but specifically when these things happen in our own backyards. I want to read something real quick. And as far as I know, the name of the officer still hasn't been released from this case. They have a website, the Washington, I think it's the Washington Post. Washington Post that keeps track of police shootings. And I think it's actually just police killings, but maybe it's police shootings. Okay, now this is police killings. I want to read this. 907 people have been shot and killed by police in the past year. It's 365 days in a year. It's somebody who already can do this division. I got to pull a calculator up to do the division. That's like basically 3 a day. That's a little less than 3 a day. So about like 2.5. 907 people have been shot and killed by police in the past year. This was updated on October 26, 2021. In 2015, the Washington Post began to log every fatal shooting by an on-duty police officer in the United States. In that time, there have been more than 5,000 such shootings recorded by the Post. I'm going to read that one more time. In 2015, 6 years ago, the Washington Post began to log every fatal shooting, only the fatal ones, every fatal shooting by an on-duty police officer. That's even only on-duty police officers in the United States. In that time, there have been more than 5,000 such shootings recorded by the Post. After Michael... Oh, damn, this phone tripping. Hold on 1 second. This phone be tripping sometimes. Bear with me. Okay. After Michael Brown, an unarmed black man, was killed in 2014 by police in Ferguson, Missouri, a Post investigation found that the FBI undercounted fatal police shootings by more than half. This is because reporting by police departments is voluntary and many departments fail to do so. The Post data relies primarily on news accounts, social media postings, and police reports. Analysis of more than 5 years of data reveals that the number and circumstances of fatal shootings and the overall demographics of the victims have remained relatively constant. Rate of shootings remains steady. Despite the unpredictable events that lead to fatal shootings, police nationwide have shot and killed almost the same number of people annually, nearly 1,000, since the Post began its project. Probability theory may offer an explanation. It holds that the quantity of rare events in huge populations tends to remain stable absent major societal changes, such as a fundamental shift in police culture or extreme restrictions on gun ownership. Black Americans are killed at a much higher rate than white Americans. Although half of the people shot and killed by police are white, that means 500 people annually that are white are shot and killed by police. The man who was just murdered in DeKalb, Chris, who was just murdered in DeKalb, was a white man shot and killed by police. Although half of the people shot and killed by police are white, black Americans are shot at a disproportionate rate. They account for less than 13% of the U.S. population, but are killed by police at more than twice the rate of white Americans. Hispanic Americans are also killed by police at a disproportionate rate. 1,000 people a year, annually, since 2015, killed by police. The rate at which black Americans are killed by police is more than twice as high as the rate for white Americans. Most victims are young male. An overwhelming majority of people shot and killed by police are male, over 95%. More than half the victims are between 20 and 40 years old. Chris was 33 years old. Faustin was 26 years old. Shootings happen across the country. One second. This phone tripping. Shootings happen across the country. Police shootings have taken place in every state and have occurred more frequently in cities where populations are concentrated. States with the highest rates of shootings are New Mexico, Alaska, and Oklahoma. This database contains records of every fatal shooting in the United States by a police officer in the line of duty since January 1st, 2015. It is updated regularly as fatal shootings are reported and as facts emerge about individual cases. And so I'm just going to go through some of these things with you. An unidentified person, a man armed with a gun, was shot on October 26, 2021 in an apartment in Louisville, Kentucky. An unidentified person, a man armed with a sword, was shot on October 25, 2021 in DeKalb, Illinois. That was Chris. Rest in power to Chris. Kim Douglas Ropp, a 60-year-old man armed with a knife, was shot on October 24, 2021 in a house in Kentwood, Michigan. Nicholas Smith, a 35-year-old man armed with a gun, was shot on October 24, 2021 on a street in Conway, Arkansas. And an unidentified person, a man armed with an unknown weapon, was shot on October 23, 2021 in Fort Belknap, Montana. Michael Raymond Hilton, a 34-year-old man, was shot on October 21st, 2021 in Campbell County, Tennessee. And this Richard, and this goes on and on. This is you go to the Washington Journal, you can just slide through these. This is October. These were still all in October. All of these people were shot and killed. I think there's a disconnect sometimes with this issue of police terrorism specifically, and I think that people expect that this will solve itself, or that some higher, some mayor, you put the right mayor in office, or you put the right candidate, the alderman in office, or you buy enough Black Lives Matter shirts, or you share enough posts on social media with hashtags, and these things will go away. But the truth of the matter is that it won't happen that way. It won't happen until we grow a hypersensitivity to when these macroaggressions manifest. It won't happen until each time one of these people are killed by police, it feels like each person being killed and shot by police all over again. It won't happen until when someone is shot by a police officer, there are hundreds of people in the area that stop business as usual and go straight to being boots on the ground or feet on the ground. And again, this isn't something that I've done this live this version of this live at this point 4 times. Tyrus Jones, with Faustin Guaitigo, Jose Gonzalez Jr., and now with Chris. Unfortunately, initially when Raymond Jackson died in a high-speed pursuit, I was unsure of how to articulate or how the high-speed pursuits fit into the issue, and I was unsure of. And so at the initial high-speed pursuit when Raymond Jackson was killed, I didn't have a live like this, but eventually I would have a live where I spoke about it, but just not right afterwards like this. And so I've done this 4 times. And each one of the times I've done it has been difficult. Each day or each time that I've seen the news story or heard somebody tell me, or no matter what manner I've had the information delivered to me that somebody's been shot by the police, it's been going the same process of emotions and thoughts. And unfortunately, each time that it has happened up to this point, it's been less and less of a reaction from citizens and the community and people and news outlets. And I understand that is part of the nature of what the attention span in the society we live in now, with the type of we just went through over 900 people have been shot and killed in the last 365 days by the police. If people reacted each time these things happened, we would live in a completely different society than we live in, because of how regular these things happen and because of how many places they happen in. And so I understand that we have a desensitized population when it comes to this issue. But what we have to do is we have to get to a place of having a less desensitized population. We have to do some type of resensitizing or reverse desensitizing. And I think that one of the things that me personally keeps me staying out here and again is at different points in times there has real life circumstances have came up that have altered the amount of time I'm out here at a certain day, or the amount of time I'm out here in a certain week. But I try my best to be out here as often as possible, with the understanding that we're here keeping receipts and keeping track. And what is going to happen at some point, and I don't know what that point is or when that point will be, but what is going to happen is that a police officer in this region, in this area, it may not be specifically Rockford, it may not be specifically Winnebago County, but in this area in northern Illinois, is going to shoot and kill somebody, or is going to tase somebody to death or choke somebody to death, and it's going to be caught on camera in the moment, and there's going to be a hypersensitive reaction. Instead of being a desensitized reaction, it's going to be a hypersensitized reaction. And when that time comes and when that moment comes, we will be here. We will be here, so that way it cannot be an isolated incident. So that way it cannot be something that is co-opted or something that is used as some type of political tool, but to ensure that when that day comes and when that day happens, that things are definitively different from that point forward. And there's no way to know if that is in a year or in 2 years or in 3 years or in 4 years or in 5 years. But it is an absolute Not because I want it to happen or anybody else wants it to happen, but because until these issues are adequately and honestly dealt with, these things will continue to happen and continue to manifest. It's again, the GoFundMe for Chris, the young man who was murdered by the Beloit Police Department, is pinned to the May 30th Alliance Facebook page. Please donate to that. Please share that GoFundMe and share this live. If you haven't seen the story, read the story. Talk to people about the story. Again, we're in a place where we are trying to make sure that people understand the regularity and that these things happen and the severity of these things happening and the manner of these things happening. And we have to get to a place of I seen something, I don't know if it was 23. I think 23 shared the story and put a fucking sword as the fucking image in the sharing of the story. And again, that lets you know the type of desensitized society we live in. That a news station, a news publication thought that was something that was appropriate to put up to share the story of this man being murdered. And the same thing, the comment sections and the things that people share the story and say, is all tells you the type of society that we live in. It tells you the type of society that we live in. When people are consistently calling or looking to an institution for help for people, and that institution consistently murders and kills the people that look to that institution, it becomes, at some point, us as individuals and us as members of the community become complicit in those institutional in those institutional wrongs if we aren't actively and regularly, consistently struggling and fighting against those things. And so it's a lot of people who value their jobs over justice. It's a lot of people who value their homes over justice. It's a lot of people who value their cars over justice. It's a lot of people who value all of those things over human life or over freedom or over liberty. As long as they feel as if it is not their justice or their liberty or their human life that is being marginalized or that is being exploited or that is being oppressed or that is being having these things manifest on, they're okay with it. If it means that if just keeping their head down means that they can live, hopefully go through 60, 70 years of a long life or a happy life, 80 years of a life, and they don't ever have to be shot by the police or they don't ever have to be beat by the police, even if that means that them being complicit in it as to one other person being beat or 5 other people or 10 other people being beat, they are okay with it. And that's something that, again, these institutions have understand and have learned. That is something that the people in these positions of power understand and have learned. And again, at some point, the rubber will meet the road. At some point, the rubber will meet the road in this area. And for this country, these things won't be able to continue to be, these fires won't be able to continue to be put out and to pretend like they're not happening and snuffed out like they were after Ferguson. Or as they were after George Floyd. It won't continue to be enough to put Black Lives Matter on the basketball court. It won't continue to be enough to put out these police reform bills or these fake reform bills that don't get to the root of the situation, that don't get to the heart of the problem. It won't be enough to march one day every 2 or 3 years. And again, we've been out here for We've been out here for black man, 2 black men, 1 being shot, 1 being beat, an African immigrant being murdered, a Latino teenager being shot, a white man dying after a police chase, and now a white man being shot and murdered. Police terrorism has no biases. There are some people that are disproportionately affected. There are some people who have a higher probability of being affected, but everybody is vulnerable to it. Mass incarceration has no biases. There are some people who have a higher probability of being affected, but there are some people who have a more likely chance of being affected. But it is what up, man? But it is not an institution or evil that is only picking black people, or that is only picking Latinos, or that is only picking people in their 20s, or only picking people that live in Rockford, or only picking people that live on the west side of Rockford. People are waiting for a perfect victim. And the thing about waiting for a perfect victim is that eventually you'll get one. Eventually you'll get your George Floyd or your Trayvon Martin or your Michael Brown again. And then you'll have to think about all these other people who, if you would have done more each time. And again, this isn't, I think that I don't want people to get the idea that I'm doing this live to say that people should be outside of City Hall in Rockford. This happened in DeKalb. So if I was here trying to advocate for using this as a battle cry for more people to come outside of the City Hall in Rockford, Illinois, that would be erroneous. And that's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is that we all have to begin to do something. And it can't be something that's the same thing that we did the day before, that we did a week before, that we did a month before. Because it's not going it's going to take more than just people outside of the City Hall in Rockford. It's going to take more than just, again, people sharing posts on Facebook. It's going to take people who are willing to sacrifice their status quo to change the society status quo. People should be able to have mental health crises in the comforts of their home or inside of their home without feeling like they'll be murdered by the police. This story talks about how it used the word de-escalating the situation right in a sentence before saying that 3 officers, each using a different type of weapon, shot this man and killed this man, killing this man. And the police officer goes on a paid leave. The same way that the police officer in Rockford, Illinois, who had pictures of child pornography on his phone, is on a paid leave. The same way that the multiple police officers who had rape allegations were on paid leave. One of them's not on a paid leave anymore. He took a plea down and got a disorderly conduct charge for his rape or his alleged rape. But he was on a paid leave for over a year. Multiple cops with domestic violence charges on paid leave. So on one hand, a police officer will be on a paid leave for a domestic violence charge. And then on the other hand, the police department will use a domestic charge as justification to murder a civilian. And until we get to a place where we are conscious and informed enough to not be manipulated by some of those things, we will continue to be fed these stories and these narratives through the media. And so that's one of the things that I think that I want to implore people to not allow stories that come out in the media or the way that a story is, the headline of a story, to override your humanity for the people that are involved in these stories, or your humanity or your empathy for the individuals that are involved in these stories. Each one of these incidents that we have been out for is each one of these things that we have been out for has been painted in certain ways in the media to dehumanize the person who has been victimized, to make it seem like the police officer had no other choice. But each one of these situations could have been handled in a more humane way, and each one of these situations have been handled in a more humane way. There has been somebody else who was in the same situation that Chris was in, who the Dekalb Police Department brought in alive. Multiple people. And they'll do it again. It'll be other people that'll be in the same situation as Chris that they'll bring in alive. So the times when they don't bring somebody in alive, they have to be held accountable. They should be held accountable because they have every outlet and opportunity to bring these people in alive. And so, again, I just want to ask people, anybody that's watching this, to again, please share the GoFundMe that's on the bottom of the Facebook page. That's pinned to the top of the Facebook page, the May 30th Alliance Facebook page. Anybody who has seen the story, please share the story so that way other people know about the story. And again, this is now the Tyrus. And again, even though this did not happen in Winnebago County, this did not happen in Rockford, multiple hundreds, if not thousands of people regularly go to NIU from this area. So probably not thousands, but hundreds of people go to NIU. Probably not even hundreds. I don't know how many people go to NIU from this area, but people go to NIU from this area. High school kids in high school go to NIU all the time for parties. And so the idea that even though DeKalb is not in Winnebago County, or DeKalb is not Rockford, Illinois, does not mean that we should not be vigilant about justice happening in that area, or be vigilant about making sure people are aware that the same things that we are dealing with here, that people are dealing with in these other areas. And so I just wanted to do a live and speak about specifically what took place in DeKalb, an officer involved shooting in DeKalb. We will try to keep people up to date with information around the murder in DeKalb. Again, I'll just ask anybody that's watching this to share the GoFundMe that we have pinned to the top of the page for Chris. And I want to send our condolences. I want to send my condolences, and then us also as an organization want to send our condolences out to Chris's family. And 1 second, my fault. Send our condolences out to Chris's family. And so I'm going to end this live by saying rest in power to Demetrius Bennett, rest in power to Logan Bell, rest in power to Kerry Blake, rest in power to Geno Washington. It's the anniversary of the day Geno Washington died inside of the Winnebago County Jail. There's been no justice for Geno Washington and no answers for his family. And again, one of the things about this issue of police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice is that a lot of time these events come very close together to other events that have happened at different points in time. So rest in power to Geno Washington, and justice for Geno Washington. And our condolences and our thoughts are with Geno Washington's family and Geno Washington's loved ones. I want to say rest in power to Jovan Fresco. Jovan's family still struggling and fighting in the court system to try to get justice for Jovan, who was murdered over 5 years ago by Metro Enforcement. So justice for Jovan. Rest in power to Mark Barmore. Rest in power to Philip Johnson. Rest in power to Jasper Banks. Rest in power to Suzette Babler. Rest in power to Faustin Guaitigo. Rest in power to Shannon Graves. Rest in power to Lil Mike Sago. Rest in power to Mikey Guzman. Rest in power to Joseph McCormick. Rest in power to Eddie Patterson. I want to say rest in power and justice for Chris Kramer.